Hi, this is Misa Grand Duchess Rasmus Koenig signing on for Friday, May 11th. What a glorious May Day it was. For some of us on a Friday, I always say happy Friday. You know, I hope you previous and saying have a great weekend. But I say Fridays for the friars, Saturday for those that bathe in both day, the bathe in both people, and Sunday are for all other days are for those who choose to praise. And that's the craze, darling. What do you praise on that day when you don't have to work, when you rest, or when you pray? Whatever you do it well. What do you reflect upon? Today my reflection based started last night 10 o'clock. You know, the day is the day, and when you don't have to come out, you do what you have to do to maintain that sense of liberalism of spirit, body, and soul. And whatever crosses the day, et al., you deal with it and so forth. What has crossed my day? What have I come to deal with? What am I reflecting on this week? I'm going to look back at the Syria thing, as I predicted, that the terrorists were using, the freedom fighters were actually using chemical weapons from Turkey. That's a given. They use it in Iraq and so forth. And how does one go back all the way to Billy Graham and Sylvia and all these psychic people that's been working in the White House all this time? We have destroyed people's lives looking for weapons of mass destruction, and where they are is not where they're supposed to be. It's a simple label, darling. A Pepsi sometimes become a Coke if you put the label on it. So then it becomes Iraqi, and then it becomes and so forth and etc. When Saddam Hussein invaded the Kuwaitis, darling, there is a story behind that. All those weapons in the desert, no one has showed them and where they belong. They were greatly Russian, who were never trading with the Iraqis, and so therefore it was George Bush the first who decided not to run into Iraq because they realized what a mistake it was, and a mistake his son came to be when Billy Graham and so forth, still making those same mistakes. Chemical Alley lives in Turkey. We all know that. What about these kidnapping and Boston bombings? True to life, sometimes we never know what's happening in our backyard. We have become so focused on the outside world and paranoia about terrorists that we don't see our neighbors and what goes on around us. We're not friendly enough. Mind your own MF business and let's move on. But that is the state to which the government has aspired each American to. Not the focus of that Lincoln-esque freedom and the hope of the future that we used to have. And I will make one example. I remember, well, going through this hospitalization and transition out of the military, being evaluated, I met a friend, you know, after separating myself from my family because of the horrible way they used to treat me and how I washed my hands from them. And you know, he said, you know what, you are my sister. I said, I am your sister, you are my brother. So forth, I looked out for this person I called my little creature. But et al., it came to a point where the parents said, what a terrible influence I have. And I don't know. I said, listen, I had to confront them in my honesty and say, you know what? Guess what? This is purely platonic. It's a family-like relationship. I help him, whatever. This is quite a person younger than me, and so forth. Juvenile, I used to mentor, and so you treat them as a brother, and we helped each other, and so I thought. But the parents, dissatisfaction. So I confronted them and said, listen, if you don't want, you keep your son to yourself, and so forth. This is a platonic relationship, and so forth. End the relationship. It's his option to call and say, hey, I am your friend, and I made no such demands, and ended the relationship. But ended the relationships. But that is the status of America today. We cannot trust and live in a trustworthy society. We cannot explore relationship and dignify them and enjoy them to which the spirit of which they were born. What have I wrote today? I said, and on that topic, when one is confused with friends, then you are lost, and they are losers of respect. When one is lost with enemies, you consciously wear yourself necessarily to the gates where you can enter in your own character itself. And what does that mean? Right? When you are with your friends, if you're confused with them, then you're in a confused bunch. You know where you stand. Make a move. If you're confused with your enemies, take yourself to your gate. Trust your instinct. and operate of those things to which you hold dear, true, and that build you and your self-esteem all your life. Who determines what and where you go and where you're accepted and intervene, and how you develop and adapt through adversity? Darling, some of us become ungrateful when we meet people. So a pint of patience. Patience is something very, very. We need patience in this world. It is not exercised by Congress, the office of the presidency, or anybody else. If they had, they would have taken the time to know what they were doing. We are in such a warlike state that we are even living in fear of our own citizenry. And in that sense, patience, I said, proves peace within. Patience gives us discernment and wisdom. It pisses the pinnacle peer to poverty and in the pertinence of war. Excuse me. And paranoia to peril. Absolutely. If you're not patient, when you're patient, it pisses a lot of people off. Benghazi, they were not patient enough. They were impatient, and they were loose with their interaction, and their behavior became criminal in covering it up. And I'm not even going to get into all of that. I don't want to get into that. But this paranoia of covering up the whole affair, it makes it seem, let us seem cheap, perilous, and downright deceitful as American. It's shameful to our character. It is something that we should dissociate ourselves from. The military as well as everything, it should be a standard that should never fall. Mistakes should be accepted, acknowledged, and adapted for. It's not a thing to be penalized for. And such, let us move on. And what after my prayer today? I said, thus I said I love completely, unselfishly and willingly, but got the tip. What it should be not given from reliabilities of known, never second guessed. Unknown in thyself that love should dwell, I unearth its place to uncover the love that was misplaced. Instead, it should be worn dearly closer than my garment itself. Thus I love thee, 'tis of thine in me. If it return sheltered in thine, in 'tis of thee created unto my belief. And such is it. This whole lack of love, we talk about Pollyanna and so forth, but what have we? We fail to realize that even in conception, this basic premise is in love, some sort of attraction. You don't go and breed with somebody else and create another human being because you hated them. It's all in love. So if we're going to do something, if we're going to mobilize ourselves and get other people to adapt to newer standards and greater standards, we must exemplify this standard of love, patience, and some sort of servitude and restraint, discernment. We cannot continue in a pattern absolutely destructive. 30 years and how many generations of children you losing limbs and fighting wars. How can we tolerate and live in such a society? The only thing our society lacks now, we're just like them. I said this, if we're going to be worthiness, if you have no worthiness in self, there's no foundation for your faith. There's no consecration or concrete wisdom. And then men trample on you again. And so forth. We must be worthy to anticipate and to force, not force, and to foster change and growth. Because in change, we never change in anticipation of something else. That's reactionary. And I feel that reactionary is irrational. We change to enact and show showers of will and aspiration and determination. And that is what we must do. We must keep the things, we must keep the focus. We must focus on America. We should start focusing on America. Focus on the family, the new vibrant family, whatever it is defined by the citizenry. And compassion behind it, and patience and respectability, we will decrease the paranoia in our society of the threat of terrorism, and henceforth become likable to ourselves and to our allies again. Amen.